Hello and welcome to Rocket Systems YouTube channel. Today in this video we are going to take a look at the Waveshare Jetson Nano. We are going to install the Jetpack in its internal memory, and then later we are also going to see how we can install the Jetpack in the external SD card. So stay tuned. So I was recently looking for a Jetson Nano for some of my computer vision related projects, but I was not able to find it. But then luckily I got the Waveshare Jetson Nano on Amazon. Initially I thought maybe the Waveshare is just the provider, but then when I received it and started to program it, I realized that the Waveshare has done a lot of changes in the original Jetson Nano which the nvidia has made. So one of the major changes that they have done is that they have included the internal memory in the board, which means that you cannot follow the standard way of installing the Jetpack which NVIDIA recommends. So you will have to use the SDK Manager to install the Jetpack in this Jetson Nano, which is not a problem, but the internal storage is just the 16 GBs, and out of which only 8 GB is available, which obviously is not sufficient for any of the project related work. So in order to install Jetpack on external SD card, I started following their wiki page, and I must say whoever the author is, this whole wiki page is a complete mess. I mean, you will have to read it like 10 times in order to understand what they are trying to say. There's lots of information missing in this wiki page, and this can really confuse you if you're just starting with the Jetson Nano or have no experience at all. But anyways, so this whole wiki page has three important sections. So if you go here in the user guide, you will see system installation. So in the first, they tell you how to install the image on the eMMC, which is the internal memory card, and then they tell you how to install this on the U disk, and then finally they tell you how to install this TF card. To be honest, we are not going to follow this whole wiki page because obviously there's lots of information missing in this. But if you want to follow, you can still go through all the sections they have mentioned, and I'll also try to explain in between the video what they are trying to say in this whole installation procedure. Okay, let's start. So what you need is that you need an Ubuntu 18 machine. So you need to prepare a machine which has Ubuntu 18 OS in it. And other than this, you need Jetson Nano. So I have with me Jetson Nano, which I ordered obviously it's from the Waveshare. So along with this, also need a jumper wire in order to put the Jetson Nano into the recovery mode. And you also need a USB cable. So first, let's plug these jumper wires into the Jetson Nano. So at the back of the board, you will notice there's a pin called FCREC. So you need to plug one end in FCREC and another end in the ground. Once done, you need to connect this board with the USB cable. The other end of the USB cable will go in the Ubuntu machine, and you will see this power LED comes up. So from the hardware perspective, it's all you need, and let's directly jump into the software side. Now, as a next step, we need to download the SDK Manager. So on the Waveshare's wiki page, they have given the download link of the SDK Manager. So let's click on that. And in order to install the SDK Manager, you first have to log into the NVIDIA page. So if I click on this SDK Manager, it will redirect me to the login page. So if you are not registered, you can easily register by clicking on this Join Now button. And once you log in, you will be able to download the SDK Manager. I have already downloaded the SDK Manager setup file. So I'm just going to directly install it. So let's go back to download section, and here I'll open the terminal, and I will simply write sudo dpkg -i. Now at first you will notice that it shows some errors, but that's not a problem because in the next wiki page, in the next section, they said that you can run this command in order to fully install it. So let's just copy this command and paste it here. Okay, so that is done. Now let's close this browser, and let's also close this window, and let's open SDK Manager. Now, as soon as you open the SDK Manager, it will ask you to log in. So you'll have to again log in. So let me just quickly log in. Okay, so now I have successfully logged in. Let's enable the usage collection. Now, because we have already connected our Jetson Nano module, so it has automatically detected that one of the devices connected. So we have to select the Jetson Nano And we don't have to select the Jetson Nano developer kit or Jetson Nano 2 GB developer kit. We just have to select Jetson Nano and that's it. Now it's asking me to update, which I will update because I think this also contains some of the new Jetpack versions. So let's just wait for it to update. Okay, now so everything is set up. We have installed the SDK manager and it's working fine. Now you will notice there are few steps mentioned here. So in the step one, we have to select our development and our target environment. So our product category obviously is Jetson. Now in the hardware configuration, you will notice that it has automatically selected target hardware as Jetson Nano because we have connected Jetson Nano. You will also notice that it has already checked in the host machine. So if you also want to build all the packages like CUDA and everything on your host machine, then you can select it. Otherwise, you can unselect it. Now, here we need to select which Jetpack we have to install. So I think 4.6.2 is the latest version. So let's go with 4.6.2. Now, if you are also planning to work on the deep stream, you can select this, but I do not have any plans for the deep stream as of now, so I'll just unselect it. Let's go to step 2. Now in the step 2, it is showing us some of the options which obviously it's going to install on our Jetson Nano. So first is obviously the Jetson OS and the next is Jetson SDK components. As of now, we do not need SDK components for this video, so I'm going to unselect it. But to be honest, if you are making it and you will obviously be going to use the SDK components, so I would recommend you to go with this. But for this video, I'm just going to unselect it and just going with the Jetson OS. Now at the bottom, it shows you the download folder and the target hardware folder. So it is first going to download all the image files. So it's going to save this in this particular path and then it will build those files into an image. So it's going to use this particular path. If you want to change this path, you can change it from here, but I do not have any issues. So I'll just simply accept the terms and continue to step number 3. It says the path is not created. Yes, let's create it. It will also ask me for the password. So let's also enter the password. And here we go. So now it has started downloading the OS image. And once it is downloaded, it will then start to build the image and then will finally flash the image. So let's just wait for it to completely download the files. Okay, so the downloading is all complete now. It's now creating the OS image, and once the OS image is there, it will then start to flash on our Jetson Nano. Okay, now the OS image is also completed. Now it's asking us few of the options in order to in order to flash the image on the Jetson Nano. Now, first thing is that instead of selecting this automatic setup, we have to select the manual setup of the Jetson Nano because we are doing it for the first time. Now, rest of the things remains as it is. It's obviously telling you how to put the Jetson Nano in the recovery mode, which we have already completed. And here we just have to enter the username and the password. So I'm just going to put my username and the password, and then I'll click on flash. Now this is going to start flashing the image on my Jetson Nano, and you will notice that these pop-ups comes up when it shows USB device is removed, USB device is added, which means that the flash is in progress. Okay, so the installation is complete, which means that the SDK manager has now installed our OS image in our Jetson Nano in the internal memory. Now let's remove the jumper wire from the Jetson Nano, also remove the micro USB cable, and let's plug in the 5 volt 4 ampere DC power adapter to see if our Jetson Nano boots up or not. Okay, so now I have connected my Jetson Nano with a power adapter and I've also plugged in my HDMI to see how it boots up, and I've also connected a USB to control the mouse and the keyboard. So I'm just going to power it up and then we'll see how it boots up. Here you will also notice that it has not asked us for any information related to username or the password because that we have already provided during the flashing process. Okay, so our Jetson Nano is all set up and it's now asking me for the password. You can also see that the username is already created because we entered the username and the password during the flashing process. So I'm just going to enter my password and click sign in. Okay, so we have our Jetson Nano working perfectly fine and the Jetpack is booting from our internal memory card. So I think that's all for this part and now let's see how we can boot this up from our external SD card. Okay, so now we are inside our Jetson Nano OS image and we are currently booting it from the internal storage which is the eMMC. It is still not booting up from the SD card. In order to see, we can run a command df-h. So this command is basically shows all the disk space in your in your OS. So as you can see here, it shows us the internal memory which has the total size of 14 GBs, out of which only 8 GB is available. So we are currently booting it from the internal storage, but now let's jump in to see how we can install the Jetpack OS image in the external SD card. Okay, one more thing to note here is that I'm connected to Jetson Nano from my Windows laptop via VNC. So I've installed the VNC server on the Jetson Nano, and then I've also installed the VNC client on my Windows laptop. So I've connected it using the IP address of the Jetson device. I'm doing this because I've not been able to install any screen recording software on the Jetson Nano. That's why I'm using VNC and so that I can easily record the video as well. Before we move in to see how we can install Jetpack on the SD card, first let's just go through this wiki page. So on this wiki page, let's click on this install image on the TF card. Now if you start to read all these points, you will notice that at this third point they say first download the TF card image. You can download the image provided by Waveshare, but there is no link given by Waveshare. Now I have gone through all the sections of this page and all the Waveshare website, but I have not found any link or any page which says download the TF card image. So this is the point where I got really confused because they are mentioning to download the TF card image provided by Waveshare, but there is no link given. At this point, I also sent emails to Waveshare, but they have not still responded to where I can find the TF card image for Jetson. But at this point, I assume that maybe I can use the Jetpack OS image provided by nvidia, and I burned that image on the SD card and I started following all the steps mentioned here. Now, at the end of the steps, they mention this command, and this is the dead end of this whole wiki page. So this command runs perfectly fine, but when you unplug your Jetson Nano from the recovery mode and when you power it on, it doesn't boot. It just stuck there and it starts to show all types of errors. I've also emailed Waveshare again a lot of times, but they have not still responded. So I was really frustrated that I've wasted all my money on this board because this board is not booting up from the SD card. So I started doing a lot of Google search and luckily I found one of the website which explains how to do this. So at this point I also want to highlight this particular website where the author has very nicely explained how you can change the root file system from the internal memory to the SD card. I'll put this link into the description so that you can go through this complete article, but I'll explain you what the author is trying to say in this. So what we have to do is we have to insert an empty SD card in the Jetson Nano, and then once it's inside the Jetson Nano, we will create a partition, and then the author has also provided a script so that we can download the script from here. So the author has provided this script which we have to just run, and this script will copy all the root file systems from the internal memory to the external SD card. Once done, we will be able to boot directly from the SD card. So I think let's switch to Jetson Nano and then we'll perform each steps one by one. Okay, so I'm back into my Jetson Nano now, and if we do df-h to see the spaces, so we can see that we are still using our internal eMMC storage. Now I've already plugged in my SD card, which is the 128 GB SD card. So what we are going to do now is that we are going to follow the article. So going back to that article, so we have to first enable the Jetson clock. So let's do that. So this will allow us to use all the resources of the Jetson. And now let's open Disk Manager. Okay, now here you can see, so you can see a lot of it's showing a lot of devices. So you can see this SD card reader which is showing is basically the internal eMMC. Now you can also notice that it's showing me 128 GB drive. Now this is my SD card. So I have not plugged in my SD card into the SD card slot. Instead, I have used a SD card reader and I've plugged that into the USB port. So that's why it's showing me a mass storage device, but it can be different for you. So as you can see here that it's showing me 128 GB and it's showing me the free space of 17 MB. So what I have to do is that I have to delete this because it's not mounted. So once I delete this, this will be merged with this free space and then we will convert the whole 128 GB to a partition. So let me just quickly delete this first. Delete. And now I will create a partition. So I think it's still deleting. And now I'll click on this plus icon and here you can mention whatever partition size you want, but I'll use the whole space we have and then I'll click on next and you can write here root fs and then I will erase this. I mean it will I will use the ext4 mounting formatting system. So I'll select this one and I'll click on create. So now it will start to create the file system and okay, so it has created the file system. Now one thing to note here is that for me it's showing the device name as dev/sda1, but it can be different for you. So for your case it can be mmc, blk, something like that. So for me it's dev/sda1. Now once this is done, what we need to do is that we need to go back to that article and here um, we have to download the script. So you need to go here and click on view raw and then it will download the zip file. Okay, here we go. So I've already downloaded this and I've also copied this zip file inside my Jetson Nano. Now let me close this and let me show you where it is. So here it is. Now let's simply unzip this. So I'll open with Archive Manager and I'll click and drag it here and I'll close this. Now we just have to simply run this file and then this will copy all the root file system from internal storage to our SD card. Now before running this, let's go here and let's try to do df minus h again. Okay, everything looks fine. So now I'll open the terminal. Now I'll simply clear this and I'll simply do, let me just check the command again. So and then we have to mention the path name. So okay, so what we have to do is sudo dot slash, this is the script name, and then here you have to mention your device name. So in my case it is dev sda1, but in your case it can be mmc, something like that. So let me maximize this and let me just click enter. Now it will start to copy all the file system from internal storage to your external SD card. So it's going to take some time, maybe around 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, now the script is completed and we can see that it's showing us before the path was slash dev slash mmcblk0, which is the internal storage. And now after this process, the path has changed to dev slash sda1, which is our SD card. In your case, again, it will be different. In my case, it's dev sda. Now we just have to reboot the Jetson device and then we'll see if it's booting from the internal storage or from the external SD card. Okay, so my Jetson Nano is now rebooted. So if we go back, so if we open the terminal now, and if we do df minus h again to see the disks, so you will notice that it's showing me dev slash hda1 and it has the size of again 117. It's not showing the 120 GB, but that's fine. So from now onwards, whatever we install in our Jetson OS
Jetpack OS, everything will be installed in our SD card instead of the internal memory. Now you will also notice that it is still showing us the internal memory, internal storage. That is because probably we haven't deleted the internal storage. So it is still going to show us the internal storage, but it's definitely going to boot from the external SD card. You can test this by plugging out your SD card and then again power it on, so you will notice that the Jetson Nano will not boot up. So it will only boot up once you insert your SD card. So I guess that's all for this video. This is how you can copy all the root file system from your internal storage to the external SD card. I hope you now will be able to use this Waveshare Jetson Nano and install the Jetpack OS image in your external SD card. Thank you for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe.